In this video, we can finally work on the player input and attack. We only need a simple button, which is the attack button. But even then, since Unreal Engine 5.1, we have to use the new enhanced input action system. At first, this can be a bit hard to wrap your head around, but it's actually a really nice process that also allows us to make more advanced inputs later on, so it's definitely worth learning. However, in this video, I'll only cover the basics since we have a very simple use case here. So we'll look at more advanced cases in the other projects. First, we want to open up our content drawer, go into the content folder, right-click and create a new folder called input. In here, I want to create another folder called actions. First, we want to create an input action. So go into the actions folder, right-click, and here go to input and create an input action. This is going to be called IA_attack. And we can open this up to look into all the settings we have here. However, we don't need to change anything for this since it's just a very simple implementation. Then go back into the input folder and right-click again, go to input and create an input mapping context. This is going to be called IMC_dual in our case. And these are all the assets that we need. So yeah, we need a mapping context and an action for all of our different actions. However, we just have a single action here. So in the IMC, we want to open it up and bind the mapping for our action. So under mappings, we can just press plus and open it up here. And here, where none is displayed, we want to click it and select our IA_attack asset. And here for the key binding, I want to use the space bar. So we can simply click here to select the key value and click on space on the keyboard. If for some reason this doesn't work for you, you can also just select it here in the dropdown. And again, we don't have to change anything for the triggers or modifiers, since that's only for more advanced use cases. And go to File and Save All. But this is not all we have to do. We still need to set this to active on our player. So go back into the content drawer, go to Blueprints, and BP_Samurai_player. Open this up. Then go to the event graph, and here on begin play, we have to initialize the enhanced input action system. And the steps for initialization are a bit hard to remember, since we need about 4 nodes for this. I actually created a snippet for this in the Epic Games community, which we could just copy paste and put in. However, this time I'm going to show you how to do it step by step. So first you want to right click and get controller under pawn. And then cast this to player controller. As player controller, we can drag off and look for subsystem, which will get us the get enhanced input local player subsystem, which is quite a mouthful. And here we can drag off and add mapping context. And connect these lines here. And the next step is very important and something many people will forget. We actually need to select our mapping context here. So click the dropdown and select the IMC_dual asset we created before. And this is everything we need to initialize this input system on our player. Once we have this set up, this gives us access to our input actions. So down here we can right click and type in IA_attack for the enhanced action event. And this will be fired off when we press, in our case, the space bar. So from started, we can drag off and just have a print string for now to see how and if this works. And write in attack. But if we start the game now and press space, you see that nothing happens and actually the camera moves around. This happens because we are not possessing our character yet. It's simply in the scene, but we're not controlling it yet. So that's the next thing we need to do. In most cases, we would simply drop a player start into the map and then set up the character to possess in our game mode. For example, here for default pawn class, we would select the player character. However, in this case, it's actually simpler to just have the blueprint in the scene already and manually possess it. So we can go back to our BP Samurai player, go back to begin play. After we set up all of this, we can just possess the player manually. So we can look for get player controller with the index of 0 because it's a single player game, and then possess, and connect this. For the in pawn, we simply use self, which is a reference to this blueprint here. And when we start the game now, I'm pressing. The reason this doesn't work is because here we cast to the player controller. However, since no player is possessing this, the cast will actually fail and the input won't. But since at this point no player is possessing this, the cast will actually fail and this will not be executed, and neither will this. So we can simply select this, Ctrl and X to cut it out, move this over to create some space, and Ctrl V to paste it in here, and connect these lines. So this is a very common issue you might run into when making your game, so keep in mind that we first need to possess this character, either by spawning it in the player start and through the game mode, or by manually doing this before we set up the mapping context. And now when we start the game, move into position and start, we can see that attack is being shown whenever I press the space bar. And as you can see, everything is black now, we don't see anything. And the problem here is that we need to set up the camera soon, because right now the camera goes into our character. If we press eject here, you can actually see that, yes, we are like inside the character because we possess it.